We're honored today to have with us for his first public address as president of the World Zionist Organization, Rabbi Doron Perez. Rabbi Perez flew to New York specifically to be with us and to present our opening keynote address, and we greatly appreciate him being here with us. Before assuming this role, Rabbi Perez was the executive chairman of the Mizrahi World Movement and chairman of the Center for Religious Affairs in the Diaspora of the World Zionist Organization. He was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa, immigrated to Israel at the age 18. He holds rabbinic ordination, a bachelor's degree in Jewish education, and a master's degree in Jewish history. He served in the IDF as part of the Hester program. Rabbi Perez returned to Johannesburg for a 15-year shlichut, during which he held various leadership positions, including CEO of the Mizrahi Movement of South Africa, senior rabbi of the Mizrahi Synagogue, and head of Yeshiva College Schools, the first and largest Torah school in South Africa. In 2014, Rabbi Perez returned to Israel with his wife and 4 children to serve as CEO of World Mizrahi, and later as executive chairman. Rabbi Perez's son, the late Captain Daniel Perez, Zichrono Livracha, was initially designated as missing after October 7th, 2023, having fought valiantly for hours in defense of Nahal Oz. After 163 days, he was declared deceased as of Simchas Torah, October 7th. Rabbi Perez's oldest son, Captain Yonatan Perez, fought on October 7th as a company commander in the paratroopers unit. He was among the first soldiers to retake Nahal Oz, was shot in the thigh, and injured 150 yards from where his younger brother and best friend Daniel was killed and taken hostage. Despite his injury and his brother missing at the time, Yonatan got married to Galia on October 17th, 10 days later. And thankfully, Yonatan has recovered from his injury and returned to active duty. After Rabbi Perez's keynote, he will be joined in conversation with 3 other Federation presidents. But at this time, please join me in welcoming the new president of the World Zionist Organization for the first time before the American Zionist Movement, Rabbi Doron Perez.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the very warm welcome, Michael. So we have an outgoing board, an incoming board. So to my friend and colleague, the outgoing president of the AZM, Deborah Isaac, Michael Laufer, the outgoing chair of the board, and all the members of the board. The incoming chair of the board and president, my friends Mark Levinson, incoming president, chair of the board, Shoshana Dweck, and a special good luck to all of you and the new administration, which should continue to build on all the achievements of the previous one. Our representative of the World Zionist Organization in the US, Michal Slavny Kababia, nice to see you. Kababia, still got to get it right, Kababia. To Herbert Bloch and all of the staff of the AZM and all the constituent members here, our fellow delegation from Israel, from all the different movements of the WZO, and of course our many, many friends and all those who represent all the organizations. I believe, Debbie, you told me there are 54 Zionist movements, organizations, parties, part of the AZM. That's quite an unbelievable achievement, and it should continue to go from strength to strength. There are 3 things that I want to say. The good news is there's a fireside chat, so I don't have to get it all in my talk. I've taken off my watch, but you know the joke about a rabbi who takes off his watch, it means nothing. It's just I'm just mindful of the time, so I'm just going to cut to the chase of the joke. I take it off to give you a good feeling that I'm going to end on time, but I am going to try and end on time in the next 20 minutes, Bezrat Hashem. There are really 3 things that I want to say. A short comment about my background, a comment about what I believe should the focus of the World Zionist movement should be, both internally and outward focusing, and thirdly, how we should do it together. So let me start a little bit about my background. You can hear that I have a South African accent, and Michael explained that I come from South Africa. I've had the honor of making Aliyah twice, once as an 18-year-old and again after Shlichut with our family. But I want to share with you probably the most defining, transformative moment of my life as a young man, a young boy, in terms of my Zionist fervor. I'll never forget, I was an 8.5-year-old boy, it was in 1979, and my Ashkenazi grandparents in South Africa came to tell us something that I'd actually never heard of before. They were going to leave all their children and all their grandchildren behind in South Africa, and they were going to make Aliyah. Now, I wasn't particularly happy about this because my Sephardic grandparents, my father was Moroccan born, that's where Perez is from. He was born in Casablanca, made Aliyah with the Moroccan Aliyah in the 50s, and somehow made his way to South Africa, met my mother, and I grew up as the only person I knew with a Sephardi father and an Ashkenazi mother, because everyone in South Africa is Ashkenazim. I grew up in an Ashkenazi community. And my Sephardic grandparents lived in South Africa, in Israel. They had made Aliyah in the 1950s. So I already grew up as a young child with my Sephardic grandparents living in Israel, and now my Ashkenazi grandparents that I was so close to and grew up with were now leaving for Israel. And I'll never forget my grandfather saying, I was thinking to myself, why are my grandparents leaving their children and grandchildren behind? And now I'm going to be the only person I know who both sets of grandparents don't live in South Africa. And I remember explaining to us, and I'll never forget as a 9-year-old boy, that he said, my entire life I've been a Zionist leader. In Lithuania, I was a young youth Zionist leader. I came to South Africa in 1937, one of the last boats out to South Africa. My grandfather founded the first Jewish country club in 1957 because Jews were barred from participating in a lot of sport. He was known in South Africa as Mr. Maccabi. He built Jewish sport in South Africa. He was on all the South African Olympic committees, going to all the 3 M's, to Mexico in 68, to Munich. He was present in 72, and in Montreal in 76, and then he made Aliyah in 79. So his whole life, he said, I've been a Zionist leader. And he said, I believe that I need to fulfill my vision as a Zionist leader to go live in Israel in the hope that my children and grandchildren will follow suit. And by 12 years later, 1991, all of his children, my parents and their siblings and grandchildren, lived in Israel. So I grew up in a traditional South African home, not religious, traditional, with one set of grandparents living in Israel, another set when I was 8.5 left for the Zionist dream. And therefore, Zionism and the centrality of Israel was something so visceral, so natural. It was something I felt a deep connection to, even if I didn't understand it. My parents became more observant when I was a teenager, and our family became more observant. And I'm very grateful that my connection to Judaism translated in a deeper commitment to Zionism and a deeper commitment to the state of Israel. And I want to share with you this story that my grandfather would always tell us. This is a story I heard from him hundreds of times. He had Alzheimer's in the last number of years of his life, and I heard it many more times then. He said, Doron, let me tell you a story. And he told our family this so many times. He said, when I was a 16 or 17-year-old boy, I participated in Maccabi youth games in 1936, 1937, on the Lithuanian border. Lithuanian border. He had a strong Lithuanian accent. He said, I went to these games, and it was a Maccabi youth Jewish games. And for the first time, he encountered young German boys and girls who were explaining what was going on in Germany. He heard something he'd never heard before. There wasn't social media like there is today, and even the newspapers, not everything was so clear. He said, my mother has to hear this. My mother has to hear this. He was a very sharp young man, and his mother, my grandmother, a very smart lady. She owned and ran the kiosk on the Nemanus River. The Nemanus River is the longest river in Lithuania, and every ship which travels through Kovna, they were from Kaunas, from Kovna, would pass by this kiosk. He went to the docks and he went to one of the steamboats because everybody stopped at Kaunas, wherever you were going, and said, please, when you get to Kaunas, to Kovno, the lady who runs the convenience store, please give her this note. And so the captain took it and gave it to her. Her name is Sonia, and it said, Mama, you have to come on the next steamship. I want you to hear what these young German boys and girls are saying. This is 1936-37. She got on the next steamboat. She went down to where they were playing the games on the Lithuanian border. She spent a day with these German young boys and girls. When he got back from the Jewish games, this is how he would tell us the story. He said, my mother gathered the family and said in Yiddish, Kinderlach, man muss auch packen, we're going to pack. The Kinder sorgen dem Emmes. Those kids know what they're talking about. We're getting out of Lithuania now. And because of that, my grandmother's wisdom, my grandfather's wisdom beyond his years, and the shared experiences of young Jewish boys and girls who probably most of them did not survive. Our family, my grandparents came to South Africa, and hence the rest in our family is history. And therefore, Zionism, Jewish identity, a sense of collective fate has always been inherently part of everything that is part of my identity from a very young age. But as I grew in my Judaism, I felt so privileged that the more I grew in terms of my Torah growth and knowledge, it translated into a deeper appreciation of what a state of Israel means and the land of Israel means. And I want to share with you what I believe today. To move to the second point, what I believe the number one issue facing the Jewish people, and certainly facing the Zionist movement. We are the World Zionist Movement, the American Zionist Movement. There are the heads of Zionist federations here from around the world. I believe the number one role, number two and number three role that we have today is to advocate and educate about what Zionism means. The absolute integral role that a Jewish statehood in our ancestral homeland plays, both in Jewish destiny and in human destiny. The inextricable link there is between the land of Israel, Judaism, and the Jewish people. The very first time God spoke to the very first Jew, he told him before he demanded anything else of him. He didn't say, hi, I'm God, you must believe in me. He said, Lech lecha me'artzecha me'moladetecha, and start walking, and I'll stop you when you get to a land, and in that land your destiny will be forever tied. And there I will make you a great nation, and there you will be a blessing to the world. Particularly since October 7th, but not only, since the founding of Zionism and the founding of Israel, and certainly in the last 50 years, we're not far from here, where the UN made that horrific declaration that Zionism is racism, and the late President Herzog, then Ambassador Herzog, stood up and advocated, and here we are 50 years later. But 2 years ago, 26 months ago, we all saw with such alarming veracity the new unbridled anti-Semitism that we knew existed, but now it is black and white for all of us to see. If in 1933, 34, 35, the pejorative for Jews, to dismiss Jews that you did not need to engage with them because they were lesser than you just had to call them Der Juda and put a yellow star. You don't have to engage with them. They are beyond the pale. They are children of a lesser God. They are children of a lesser nation. You can prove it in science. You can prove it with all of the race theory of all the great German genealogists and doctors. If Der Juda was how you dismissed Jews then, today you just have to call them Zios. You don't need to engage with them. They're Zios. Then we were hated because we were stateless and powerless. Now we are hated because we have a state and we are powerful. Then it was the yellow star of Der Juda. Now it's the blue star of the Zio. And we face it everywhere. Only last week, the alma mater of my wife, she studied in UCT, the University of Cape Town, physical therapy. And now they just, in their convocation, just passed a ruling that no Zionists will be allowed in any echelons of the university. Because you see, today you cannot stand up in any respectable Western country university and say, I hate Jews. Jews will not be part of us. But you can stand up anywhere and say, but I hate Zionists. And from the river to the sea, 7 million Jews should be killed and Palestine should be free with impunity, because I've got nothing against the Jewish people. I want to kill 7 million Jews in Israel, but that's not because I hate Jews. It's just the Jewish state. Yeah, but the Jewish state is so integral to everything that Jewish identity is about. No, we don't hate Jews or Judaism. We just hate the Jewish state. Yeah, but the Jewish state is the greatest enterprise of the Jewish people in the modern era, which almost every Jew supports. How can you say you like Jews, but you just hate the Jewish state? And that is the sophisticated anti-Semitism of today, whereas it was less sophisticated, but no less scientifically backed. I could always close my eyes and see great German genealogists explaining we don't have a problem with Jews, it's just science. There's a problem with their race. It's racial theory. It's just, that's the problem. I mean, it's in the science. And today it's just, you see, it's human rights. It's genocide. It's just pointing to the same uncommon sense of those who cannot see the difference between right and wrong, and between black and white. And that is our mission today. Not far from here, at Park East Synagogue, as was mentioned, who would have thought that Nefesh B'Nefesh would be a political organization? Who would have thought that coming to a shul and a synagogue and speaking about the mitzvah of making aliyah, not to any settlement anywhere, simply moving to Israel anywhere from the river to the sea, anywhere, will be that the mayor can stand up and say, yes, anti-Semitism is wrong, but they shouldn't have profaned a synagogue. Because now talking about the mitzvah of moving to Israel, that's politics. Meaning the existence of a Jewish state anywhere between the river and the sea is fair game. And any Jew anywhere wanting to fulfill the mitzvah of moving to Israel is now fair game. Or at CUNY University, one of the CUNY facilities, as you may have heard a few weeks ago, where an interfaith gathering of a director of Hillel has a walkout of Muslim students saying we don't sit with Zionists. For God's sake, it's an interfaith Jewish, Christian, Muslim gathering. No. This person supports Israel. He's a Zio. We don't sit, we don't engage, we don't talk, and this gives us a taste of what it is to follow. But the good news is we know how to turn challenges into opportunities. That is what makes us the Jewish people. And therefore, at least the battle lines are demarcated. This gives us a tremendous opportunity, and specifically the AZM in America, and specifically the World Zionist Organization all around the world, to stand up for our finest hour. If Zionism is being portrayed as a curse and something derogatory, we all know what a blessing it is. And this is our turn to stand up and to put all of our great Jewish minds together from across the board, and non-Jewish minds together, all those who support the blessing of a state of Israel and the role that it ought to play in the future of Jewish and human destiny. And the final point that I want to make is how we do this. And I agree wholeheartedly with everything that has been said today. The beautiful motto of many visions, one dream, which is always what Zionism was about. Or as Michael said, the beautiful words of Rabbi Schreier, who said, was it you who said this, Michael? Yeah. When we are united, we will prevail. I wrote it down. When we are divided, we will fail. And I truly, truly believe that the World Zionist Organization and the AZM in America and all the federations of the Zionist federations around the world, this is our moment. Because you see, our enemies have made it so starkly easy for us, painfully easy for us. On October 7th and every day since, every single Jew, and quite frankly, non-Jewish Zionists in Israel is fair game. Hamas did not distinguish between ultra-progressive Jews and ultra-nationalistic Jews, not between ultra-Orthodox Jews and not between ultra-secular Jews. They didn't even distinguish between Jew and non-Jew, Muslim and Christian. 21 Bedouins were killed on the day. It didn't matter if you were an observant Muslim, but you're a Zionist because you support the Zios. You live in the land and you support the land and you work in their settlements. And our enemies do not distinguish between who is a Jew. They say, you can argue about that as much as you want. We don't care. You can argue about that as much as you want. What type of Jew is better? We don't really care. Any Jew who supports Israel in any way is a Zio, and heaven forbid, is fair game. And around the world the same. Ultra-Orthodox synagogues, ultra-progressive synagogues face the same threats today, from Melbourne to Vancouver, anywhere in the world today, anywhere. It doesn't matter what type of synagogue. If it's a synagogue perceived, as almost all Jews and synagogues are, as supporting the right of Israel to self-determination in our land, one way or the other, is fair game. And perhaps the final point is this. Perhaps if we are able to respond with deep internal unity, maybe we won't need external enemies to remind us that we need to come together, if we can come together from within. And what's so special about the World Zionist Organization, the AZM, is the following. I'll start with the World Zionist Organization. I'm not aware of any other Jewish organization which has such diverse geography, 40% from Israel, 30% from America, 30% from the rest of the world. Secondly, such diverse ideologies. Just 54 Zionist organizations alone in America. From, again, ultra-progressive, ultra-liberal to ultra-orthodox and ultra-nationalist, all sitting under one roof. And secondly, what is our mission? I always say when I see all these resolutions that everybody argues to death over at the World Zionist Organization, I say, who cares? Who cares? We do not make decisions at the World Zionist Organization of who is a Jew and how you convert. And there should be sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, or whether Haredim should go to the army. I care about those issues. Well, go to the Knesset and argue all you want. The World Zionist Organization makes resolutions which have got no budget line attached to it. They are at best declarative, at worst performative. They mean nothing in the greater scheme of things. But you know what does mean something? Is can this organization come together with what our mission and jurisdiction and authority is? The future of Israel and Zionism. And today, it doesn't matter if you're an ultra-Orthodox Jew, if you're an ultra-liberal Jew, if you're an ultra-nationalist, it makes no difference. Because each and every one of us are targets in this covenant of fate for the future of the Jewish people. And therefore, for this we can come together. If we can't find ways to come together, that all Jews, all 54 organizations can't march together and come together for Israel in a way that we don't let the differences divide us, because this is not the Knesset. This is not where we fight our ideological battles. This is simply not the jurisdiction. If you want to fight ideological battles, there's lots of other places to fight. Here it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference, but it's not the ikar. The ikar is, can we stand together? And I think, as Rabbi Schreib so beautifully said, Shreya, when we are united, we will prevail. When we are divided, we will fail. And I want to say a Dvar Torah from this week, and I will end with this. I basically stuck to my time. I'm quite impressed with myself, but I'm not yet finished, so I shouldn't be too impressed. I have to end with Ran Gvili. Ran Gvili, as you know, is the only hostage still to be returned, body to return. His mother still believes he may be alive. I was talking to Tali a few weeks ago. A little bit like Yaakov in this week's parsha, who, his son showed him the Technicolor dream coat with blood, but it's circumstantial. Where's the body? And as it turned out, Yosef was alive and he could never be comforted. And there is so much pain and suffering because you hear that the person isn't alive, but there's still a glimmer of hope. How is it that the Jewish people have paid the most irrational prices to return our hostages? How? No people on earth would pay the price that we do, and I'll tell you why. We learned it from our forebear Avraham Avinu. When Abraham heard that his errant nephew Lot was taken captive, he takes all his 318 men and off he goes to battle in Genesis chapter 14, Bereshit. And he risks everything to save Lot. And I ask myself, Abraham, who allowed you to do that? God sent you on a mission for the sake of the world and ethical monotheism. Who allowed you to sacrifice everything for one errant nephew who left you and chose to live in Sdom and chose to live amongst the worst immoral cities in the world? Who allowed you? Why didn't you ask a question? Who allowed you to risk everything for him? And the answer is in the verses. Vayishma Avraham heard ki nishba achiv, that his brother had been taken care of. It's my brother. Does a parent ask a question if they should jump into the river to save a drowning child? Does it make sense? Do they do a cost-benefit analysis? Does a brother or sister worry about running into the fire to save a sibling? It makes no sense, but it shouldn't make sense. It's my son. It's my brother. And therefore, because Avram was able to see his nephew as his, not his errant, sinful nephew, but as his brother, everything changes. And I said at Daniel's open grave, what is special about the Jewish people is we may be one of the smallest nations in the world, one of the smallest people, but we are the biggest family. And when it's family, boy, when family comes together, nothing can stand in the way. And finally, of this week's parasha coming up, Yosef. Says Rav Soloveitchik, the great leader of the Mizrahi movement in America, head of Yeshiva University, in his 5 addresses that he gave at his Mizrahi annual conventions in the 60s, said, the brothers had lots of good reasons why they wanted to sell their other brother. Everyone had good reasons. They didn't wake up one morning and think that Yosef was an enemy. They had good ideological reasons. We don't have time to go into the different reasons. They really thought that Yosef was a danger to the future of Israel, like Esau was before and like Ishmael was before. That all the ideological reasons to reach the conclusion that they should give up on their brother. And that sin never leaves us. Our sages say that the sin of brothers giving up on each other never ever leaves us. There isn't a generation, if it's the 10 martyrs, because of the 10 brothers, this theme of the 10 martyrs recurring in history, and the sages say it's because of the 10 brothers who gave up on their brother. We don't give up on each other. Certainly not in the World Zionist Organization, where our enemies have made it so clear that we are all, whether we like it or not, brothers and sisters. Whether we think one's an estranged brother, an adopted brother, part of the family, not part of the family, each one you can think what you want. Our enemies have made it very, very clear to us, and I hope and pray that this organization, first and foremost, who represents the broadest swath ideologically and geographically of Zionist Jews around the world, that we will be able to stand together with many visions and one dream of tremendous activism and standing together, K'ish echad b'lev echad, that we are all brothers and sisters, because when we understand that we may be such a small people, but we are indeed the largest family, indeed, we will always prevail. Batzlacha to all of us, batzlacha for the conference. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Powerful speech. Thank you for sharing that with us. In addition to the rabbi, we have 3 other distinguished guests from the World Zionist Organization with us today, and I'm going to ask them to stand up as I introduce them, wave to everybody so that in the course of the next 2 days you'll have a chance to talk to them. Yair Lutstein, who is the new incoming head of the Department of Irgun and Israelis Abroad. Yaniv Nachmias, who is the CEO of that department. And Michal Slawe-Kababia, who is the WZO's representative in the United States. So thank you for being with us as well. And at this time, I'm going to invite to join us up front Stan Greenspan, the president of the Canadian Zionist Federation, Nachshon Rodriguez Pereira, chairman of the Zionist Federation of the Netherlands, and Deborah Isaac, the president of the American Zionist Movement. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you all for joining with us. This is an opportunity for us to be in conversation. I'm going to ask some questions or get the discussion started. So, Rabbi Perez. In the week before the Congress, Debbie and I authored an op-ed which appeared in the Jerusalem Post. Debbie and I wrote that the time has come for the WZO to realize that nearly half of world Jewry resides outside of Israel, and therefore we should return to an era of greater diaspora participation and greater diaspora leadership within the WZO, the Congress, and the national institutions. I'm sure everybody saw it. We posited that just as in Herzl's day, our diversity is our strength, and our unity anchored in shared leadership is our future. So as you may know, many Federation leaders from around the world feel as if the WZO's leadership is not particularly interested in their perspective and the input of the various federations. And there's a feeling that this is a deep cultural element within the WZO. So I'm giving you an easy question to start. So culture is a difficult attribute to change in an organization. So you spoke about diversity and unity. Would you address the issues that we're talking about and how your vision, how your plans for your term will deal with this challenge? And when you finish, I'm going to ask the various federation heads to discuss this as well.
Thank you. Since you haven't heard from me until now. No, but this does give me a chance to take the ideas I spoke about and bring them to more practical plane. I just want to say that what's unique about the World Zionist Organization is that if you look at its constitution and its constituents, 40% come from Israel, 30% from the rest of the world, from America, and 30% from the rest of the world. So in a sense, the stakeholders of the World Zionist Organization and Keren Kayemet are 60% Jews in the diaspora. And it's high time that that is reflected in the leadership. The fact is that I'm an English speaker and I come from diaspora communities and I understand the communities to the extent that I do, and playing a leadership role in the World Zionist Organization is maybe a sign of that beginning of a shift. And I think it's really, really important. So many Jews in Israel are waking up to the fact. I often mention this line. I want to mention it. I actually heard this from 8 years ago from Naftali Bennett when he was the Minister of Education. He said this line, and he said it at our Yom Yerushalayim celebration, and I want to quote it because it had a very deep impact on me. Naftali Bennett said, I don't know if he made it up, but I'll just say you must say something in the name of the person you heard it from. He said the following. He said, in the first 70 years of Israel, the state of Israel was the project of the Jewish people. Maybe it's come time now for the Jewish people to be the project of the state of Israel. And I think it's high time that we renew our covenant of fate. It is absolutely wrong, in my opinion, for Jews in Israel, in the World Zionist Organization, to use diaspora Jewry to promote themselves. And it's wrong the other way around as well. What we need to have is, it makes sense that the people playing most of the leadership positions will be Israelis because they live in Israel and the land of Israel's in Israel. So it makes sense that those leadership positions, but there needs to be a very deep representation and sense that we're all working together with a covenant of fate, that people in the diaspora have a voice in Israel, and those in Israel are serving the people in the diaspora. And I just want to say one practical point, and that's why it was a no-brainer when Debbie and Herbert and very, very kindly invited me to come. It was a no-brainer for me because Debbie and I were talking in Basel a couple of years ago. If you were in Basel for 125 years, it was a very, very impressive 125 years. But there was one thing that both Debbie and I felt was missing, is that the heads of federations, there wasn't one event celebrating the heads of federations. And maybe it's because the leadership of the organizations haven't really come from the diaspora and maybe understand the extent of what the community needs are the way we do when we come from the diaspora. So to me, I think the number 1, 2, and 3 after Jewish unity, I believe we've got to work together, as I said. But I think it's strengthening the federations. The AZM should not exist once every 5 years to run a big election. That should be the secondary thing it does. The thing it should do with all federations around the world is to do Zionism. And I think first and foremost, I believe the World Zionist Organization is responsible for that, is that we need to invest significantly in the federations around the world. And because at the end of the day, the branches of the World Zionist Organization, they're not branches, they franchised, but the branches of the World Zionist Organization, let's call it that, the national federations, all AZM in America and all the other ones around the world, they, along with us, have the jurisdiction to be involved in Zionist activity. And we are the broadest swath of Jews from around America, 54 organizations. And I think the strength of the federations, the ability of the federations to work together
with all the constituents to do this is the call of the hour. And in the role as president, asked to play a significant role in supporting the federations and ensuring. I really believe that I'll say in conclusion that, by the way, it's what I've got Rabbi Matenki and others from World Mizrahi who, when I was head of World Mizrahi, I always felt that World Mizrahi is only as strong as its branches are around the world. And I say the same as the World Zionist Organization. You can only what does it mean to be a global organization if your national movements are not as strong as they could be? And I think our aim has to be to work together, to each one to bring what we bring, and make sure that we invest appropriately, the AZM invests appropriately, and together we can, in every country, and certainly in the United States, it's by far the most important, we can attempt to build together in a significant way the brand of Zionism, which I think is the most important endeavor today.
Thank you. I'm going to ask in order Debbie, Stan, and Nachshon to respond to the same question and to give us perspective of what you see in your own federation and what you feel you need from the WZO to change in order to accomplish the lofty goals that we've established.
Me to start? Okay, so first of all, thank you. First of all, for being here with us, Rav Doron. It's really a privilege for us to have you here as your first official appearance as the new president of the WZO, and we're so pleased that you will have 5 years in which to make some change, because 2.5 years is not enough, really, and 5 years will give you some time to do some real work within the WZO. And I think we all know there are a lot of things that can be done, and this is a new position that I know you will take and do great things with. And as you mentioned, of course, diaspora leadership doesn't live in Jerusalem. We all know this, and that is a disadvantage in some ways in terms of putting leadership positions, making diaspora leaders into leadership, in leadership positions in WZO. However, it is possible for there to be consultative roles from diaspora leadership, and this did exist in the past. It didn't exist in the last 5 years, maybe not even in the last 10 years, but it did exist sometime in the past where there was a role to play that from among the members of the Vada Poel, there were committees who worked together. Now there's, I don't know, is it 20 or 24 or I don't know, it could be up to 50 departments at this point, but whatever. There's a lot of departments of the WZO now, and those departments, rather than working just as small fiefdoms independently, could easily be working together with the leadership, which is representative of the entire world Zionist leadership. The Vada Poel is the operating body in between the congresses and has the top leadership on it. And by the way, federation heads do not have any official role within the WZO. And this, I think, is a big mistake. Federation heads, by the fact that they are federation heads, should have an official role within the WZO. It shouldn't be, as Mizrahi kindly gave me my role within the WZO, despite the fact that I had no specific role. In other words, I had a vote on the Vada Poel only because Mizrahi gave me a vote on the Vada Poel. I didn't have a vote on the Vada Poel as the head of the largest Zionist federation in the world. That's kind of ridiculous. So these are just 2 suggestions. There are many more. Obviously, I mean, we have spoken, and I have mentioned that I'm happy to work on these issues. I've had conversations with many Zionist Federation leaders around the world, and of course we can always have more. But again, there's also a world of talent and passion from the leadership that sits on the Vada Poel itself that can be utilized to work together with the departments of the WZO to have real action plans, to have real strategy. If there's an actual real strategy top down for the entire organization instead of a scattershot approach, real change can be made and real impact can happen.
Thank you. I was going to say a lot of things, but you said most of them in your speech, which is interesting. And I think we're at the same point. When Debbie and I and Herbert met at the Congress, you know, the question I asked was, what was my role at the Congress? And the answer was nothing. Literally nothing. We weren't on any committees. We were allowed to go into places, but they found your name on the 4th page down, so they would let you in. The problem we have, I was on the budget committee for the last 5 years, and I was constantly complaining because with a $45 million budget, just under 1% of that budget goes to federations around the world. And I said at one of the budget meetings, and I bothered a few people there, I said, I'm going to assume that most of the Jews in Israel are Zionists. Why are we spending 99% of our money there? Because we're not doing anything for the other 50% of the Jews who live in the world. We have terrible problems with how we are perceived by society. We need to do some public relations work to really build that up. As an example, this past Wednesday, there's a group in Toronto that did a debate, an Oxford-style debate, on a two-state solution. And on one side, they had Omerat and Tzipi Livni. The other side was Michael Oren and Shaked. And the way that the CBC, the national broadcaster, portrayed it was about the demonstration that took place outside, not about the discussion inside, and how the Palestinians weren't represented in this discussion. It didn't talk about what was said. It didn't talk about anything like that. We have no way, we don't have the budget to go ahead and do something. I think we need to do it as a worldwide thing rather than just in Canada. I've been talking to some people in my life who are public relations experts, who worked in political campaigns, who know that kind of thing. And they're interested in doing that kind of thing, but we don't have the budget. And there's more things than that. We are a united group. There are 11 different federations that are part of the Canadian Zionist Federation. They're all mostly on the same page. We're united. There's no question about that. You know, it's whether you get up in the morning, you get out of the right side of the bed or the left side of the bed, and you know how people can argue over that, especially with Jews. But we need to get together and we need to do something that we can convince the rest of society that, as you say, Zionism is not a bad thing to talk about. And that's where we need to be.
Thank you. My name is Nachshon Rodriguez Pereira from Amsterdam. I want to say I'm very happy that I'm here in America with you, and also to be sitting here on the chair and to say a few words on the federation in the Netherlands. It's been tough, like in many other places. I'm sure most of you have heard about the so-called Jew hunt we had in Amsterdam about a year ago, when they were basically running after Israeli tourists or anyone that looked Israeli or Jewish. So it's been tough. And the question was basically, what's our main challenge for the upcoming year? And I could say that it's the outside world, and that the public space for Jews is increasingly small. The public space, universities, media, everywhere we're being cancelled. So that could be one of our main challenges. But I would still say that our main challenge, and this is something that was already before October 7th, is our own community. We have about 65,000 Jews in Amsterdam, if you count everyone with the Jewish identity, and 85% is unaffiliated in the Netherlands, and also our intermarriage rates are 85%. This has nothing to do with October 7th. If anything, it provides an opportunity to bring people in, because now they're all looking back and they're feeling, you know, we belong somewhere else. So really, our main challenge is to bring these people back. Now, I'm part of several initiatives to try to do that. I'm part of the Bendigamos community, Jewish community, also synagogue, where we try to bring people back in. We organize Jewish concerts with a different organization, and also an initiative that I think is interesting is we're trying to create a counterforce against the anti-Zionist narrative in the Netherlands by bringing together all kinds of groups that are victims of it, just like us. So we're creating a group with not just Jews, but also, for example, Assyrians, Druze, Iranians, Turkish people that are not in favor of Erdogan, Hindu council in our country, and see if they can also help us and to make allies with them. So I think it's going to be very helpful. But from the WZO, I must say I haven't really seen or found out yet how we could work together in bringing these people back. Because really, in the Netherlands, we can either win 50,000 Jews and make them proud Zionists, or we really lose them, because we see, and I think you see it here too, when the Jewish people anywhere in the world they don't have Jewish friends, they don't have Jewish education, they don't have the news sources that they should have, they will become even anti-Israel very quickly. So we need them, and I hope that the WZO will help us, and anyone in this room, to help us get the 50,000 Jews in Amsterdam back. I'll tell you, a lot of people think in Amsterdam things are going well, we have infrastructure, but really we are still suffering from the results of the Second World War, and we needed support. So I would really like to be invited. I mean, I will ask, I know you, so I'll ask you. Just be on the table, sit together, let's say once every half year, and just see how can we work together. I would say just be partners. Let's sit together with other parts of other heads of federations and see what can we do. I don't know the WZO so well, or the 24 departments. Just talk and see how can we get these people back into our people. And with regard to your suggestion to maybe vote or make it an official position to be head of the federation. Honestly, in the Netherlands, I was a delegate after a very, very nasty election. I won because I refused to lose to the people that wanted to play in a very nasty game. But if possible, I would prefer to stay away from making this also a political thing. We're already very much politicized in the WZO, but for sure, to have them make some role in the WZO would be good. So thank you.
Any response before my question?
Yes, I don't know if my response is going to connect to your next question, but I just want to say this. You're all 100% right, and I think we can do an immediate beginning of a tikkun. So I'd like to invite all heads of federations, and maybe Debbie also all immediate past heads of federations as well. So let's get together in, maybe for the first one in Yerushalayim. It's actually ridiculous when you think about it. Again, I'm not here to point fingers, because it's not helpful, and it's not the way. I must be honest. Also, since October 7th, I've also tried to take our own experiences not to a place of. The one thing I've learned in life is that pain, even excruciating pain, does not have to turn into blame. It doesn't have to turn into protracted anger. Anger's got a place, but if it turns into blame, it's never ever healthy. And I think our sages have taught us that maybe the most important Jewish idea is to judge others favorably. It's the single most powerful implementation of loving our fellow persons ourselves, to try and see them in a positive light the way they would want to see us. And therefore, I don't believe, especially if you're not a judge. If you're a judge, you can't have a judge not judging people. You can't have a judge sitting judging people, so I don't want to hear anything negative about them. No, you're the judge. You have to. But most of us spend our lives, when we're not the judges, judging people unfavorably, when it's not our jurisdiction to do so. So I do want to say, so I'm not here to look back, but I think if you look at it with common sense, it just seems ridiculous that heads of federations are not significantly represented in the World Zionist Organization. So I'd like to begin the tikkun now and say, to invite, and I'll obviously speak to the chairman, Yaakov Chagoel, and the department which deals with the federations as well, even though under the presidency there's going to be dealing with federations as well, Jewish unity and federations. But I'd like to invite you all. Let's have a conference, a get-together with all the federations of every Jewish federation around the world, and begin discussing this to formalize initially advisory role, maybe something more formal. And I take it upon myself in the role of the president, in liaising with all of the other heads, and let's be the change we want to see in the world. Okay, there you go.
Great. I have one more question now,
Michael,
and then
I did notice that. What's your first name again? Nachshon did a fundraising pitch. In case you didn't hear, if anyone wants to help the 50,000 Jews in the Netherlands, you can talk to Nachshon. I like that. It was a good pitch. We'll try and help you.
So I'm going to offer one additional question, and then we have some time for questions from the floor. So hopefully we have a microphone that we can have available. So the question is that we have read that one of the key initiatives of your new portfolio will be the creation of a Unity of the Jewish People Task Force. So would you please share with us a little bit about what that initiative entails, how it will involve the various federations, and then federation heads can respond to that with some questions that they may have.
I think the answer is to do it in a consultative way. For me, it's absolutely clear for me, as I spoke about, that the number one issue is how we deal with the brand of Zionism, and the way we do that is in a way of unity. And for me, it was important for me, even if I was going to be, well, going to be the president or the chairman, the issue I pushed is to have what I call a minhelet of Achdut Am HaYehudi. I don't propose to know exactly how to do it. I just know and feel that it's the most important thing to do today. And this organization, which, as I said, has representation across all geographies and all ideologies, is maybe to sit together with the heads of the federations and say, how can we strengthen the federations? By the way, one of the things that I also got a small budget for, but it's a budget nonetheless, is to strengthen what are called the national days with the federations, meaning Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, to find a way directly to the federations to how can they ensure that the days of national commemoration and celebration in Israel are done in the broadest and most unifying way. But that's a separate issue, it's related but separate. But the main budget is going to be towards finding projects of Jewish unity. I'm not coming into the preconceived idea, other than that we have to do this. And I think what we need to do is to sit together with all the heads in Israel and all the federation heads and say, what are the initiatives that can bring about as much effective Zionism in a unifying way? So to me, the budget is there. How we do it exactly, I've got ideas, but I think it's not that I've got one prescriptive idea. I must be honest, in the last 2 years, I've been looking for lots of unity initiatives because that's what I feel Israel needs. And they're not so easy to find. What I mean by that is you don't want to do what other people are doing. You want to either, if other people are doing it well, then do it together with them and magnify it. So I'm still trying to work out what the right thing, but to me, the platform of a World Zionist organization, which brings together so many geographies and diversity, is unique in the Jewish world, and that gives us an opportunity to work out together how we can do it together. So that's there.
So let me just ask you this as a follow-up. Instead of how we do it, what does success look like for you? What is this
Success
goal?
would look like to me if we could have an Israel type, whatever it might be, whether it's a Yom HaZikaron, a Yom HaAtzmaut, or just an Israel, like the Israel Day Parade you have here, but Israel activism, where every single one of the 54 Zionist organizations can say, we can buy into that, we're going to stand together, 54 heads, tens if not hundreds of thousands of people coming together, whatever it is, that's what we should be doing. And so that, in my opinion, is what success looks like. For me, if in a number of years' time, we come together as Jews with a cause that we all believe in a positive way to stand up for Zion, and we can all do it together, meaning we shouldn't only come together to vote against each other in an election. The election's in 5 years' time. Let's not worry about that now. I mean, we'll worry about it. But we've got 4 years now of activity to think, how can we together do Zionism? Now, I don't mind if people are thinking, how can they, and they should be thinking, this is a political organization, everybody should be thinking how they can strengthen themselves in 5 years' time. But that can't be the ikar. The main thing can't be, how can I secure a position for myself and for my party in 5 years' time? To quote Kennedy, don't ask what the World Zionist organization can do for you, ask what you can do for the World Zionist organization. I don't mind if while you're doing good for the Jewish people, you strengthen yourself and your party, but don't get it wrong. Don't use the Jewish people and the national institutions to build yourself and your party. Use yourself and your strengths and your parties to build the World Zionist organization and the AZM. And therefore, what does success look like? Any event which is pro-Israel, any event that 54 organizations can come together. Again, I'd like to challenge the new leadership of the AZM, Mark and Shoshana. You've given me a challenge, which is to bring all the federations. I want to give you a challenge. Can you think of something in 2026 which can bring every single federation and every single Zionist movement together to stand up for Israel in a way that brings us all together? If we can do that, and I'll be the first one with whatever budget I don't yet have to support. Because if you can bring 55 and it's got to be 54, not 52. Even if it's 52, we'll give you, sorry? 54. Now, what I'm saying is the support will be commensurate with how many of them you can bring. Whatever it is, because to me it's irrelevant what it is. If we can stand together for Israel in a way that brings us together, as Rabbi Shreya said, if we stand together, we prevail. If we stand apart, we fail. This is our time to stand together, and we'll be there for you.
Any comments? You guys have any comments? Or do you want me to go to a question?
Wonderful. I think that's we have the beginnings of something that's working, and I hope that we can do it from the bottom up rather than from the top down in a lot of ways, and take suggestions from people around the world. I think that's one of the most important things we can do. I had a lot of experience with that in my other presidential roles in the past, doing the same kind of thing where we work from the bottom, we take ideas that doesn't have to come from the people who are sitting on the stage or even everyone in the room. I think that's the most important thing we can do, because then we have buy-in from the start. We don't have to tell everybody about it.
So first of all, again, I agree. This is an excellent start. And just the idea of even opening up to take the ideas of leaders around the world is already a huge start. Just one comment about the celebrations of the national days. So I had started my presidency in trying to get all Jewish communal organizations, major Jewish communal organizations in the United States together to celebrate Israel 75. It didn't come together quite the way we had hoped. One reason is because the Israeli government doesn't recognize the years with a 5. It had to have a 0. So we're coming up on 80. So maybe it'll work for 80. They said we only celebrate the decades. We said, it's 3/4 of a century. That's not a good one. Israelis didn't think in quarter of a century terms. So so maybe coming up on 80, something could be done for that. But even beyond the 54 organizations and represented by this room, we could even go further than that. I think, Mark, something could be done, and having that support, initial seed support from the WZO would be really, really great. And just one comment about that, I remember being, I don't want to say exactly when because I'll date myself, but being younger, and there was Triple SJ. Many of you may remember Triple SJ, and we used to go out and we would rally, and everybody felt that this was a cause that they could believe in and get behind and have something to do something about, and it resulted in the release of Jews from the Soviet Union. This was a great success because there was something we could do, and then we could get a result for it. When I was in college, again, I'm going to date myself, and this goes back to your background, South Africa, apartheid was the cause celeb, and apartheid was specifically about South Africa. And on my college campus, which was Columbia University, there were, the tents out for that, and everybody was getting around that because college students needed something to have a cause. We need to make Zionism our cause. We need our young people to have a cause that they believe in and they feel good about, and we need to look at the good things of that. Look at the vibrant and wonderful country that has been built. I go to Israel, I feel vibrancy and a future, and that is something we need to instill in our young people who they want this to be their cause also. That's the direction we have to go in this, and we need to find ways to look at that. We talk a lot about negatives. We talk a lot about what the difficult things we are facing. Young people don't want to be involved in what's the difficult thing that we're facing. They want to look at what's the positive, good thing at the end of the tunnel we can get to. And we need to be focusing there as well. So I want to focus people not just on, yes, I know we are sort of still in this trauma of what's been endured in Israel recently. And it's still there, and we're not going to get rid of it entirely, and it's going to be a lot of recovery from that. But we need to build in those great things. I mean, Israel is an economy that is so vibrant in the midst of this existential war. And that's something people can get behind, right? This is something great. So we need to build on that, and we can do that globally. we can do that in the Netherlands, and we can do that in the United States, and we can do that in Israel. And I think what needs to happen, and in Canada, yes, thank you, Canada is part of the world. And I think one thing that needs to happen is much more relationship building between diaspora Jewry and Israeli Jewry. There's still a big disconnect there. And I think the WZO is a great platform to do that.
Thank you. Well, I agree with everything said before, but I will try to just make two more points. One about the volunteering in the Netherlands, and one about unity. Something that makes it harder for us in the Netherlands to bring all the organizations together is that pretty much everyone that works for our organizations, for our synagogues, for other institutions, they're all volunteers, and they're all doing this on the side of their job. And our infrastructure is partially from before the Second World War. 90% of the Jews were killed, more or less, 80 to 90%. So there's also some old institutions that people do not want to dispose, but also it's a bit much to carry. So everyone is like 5 or 8 boards that are doing on the side. So usually they say, we're busy, we don't want to do other things. So one of the things we need to have is maybe to have WZO representative in the Netherlands, or someone for our federation that can actually organize things, that has some spare time, because it's really something that everyone is looking for, to have some time in the Netherlands. The second thing is about unity. I'm really happy to have Doron as a leader, and to also what I see here today, the atmosphere of respect and unity. And it's not exactly the same vibe that I got when I was in Jerusalem a month ago, for the ones who were there. And I think that this is also something that we could improve. I believe sometimes you cannot really take over culture easily, but from the bottom up, if you start with a group that is unified and you build it out slowly, it can make a huge change. I think it helps if wherever we go and we see there is less unity or there's less respect. It helps to select certain leaders when you hire new people, when there's people involved. When you have meetings, that you set the rules for how to behave respectfully towards each other. And I think that can also go a long way. It's not always automatic, but I think that's something we should work on more. And the last remark is I hope I got the metaphor right, but it's really nice, I think, about the butterfly effect. Maybe you know it. Always around Hanukkah, I think about this when we light the candles, because I feel it's related to it. The butterfly effect is that when you're a butterfly and you spread your wings, the butterfly spreads its wings, it can cause a hurricane, like on the other side of the world. Sometimes a very small gesture can turn things into effect, and into something really huge. And I hope this is something that we can create with unity, starting here and other places where we go, that this will create into huge unity also in Israel up until even the Knesset. That will be great. So thank you.
Great. So I'm told we have 2 questions to start, and we'll see if we have time for some more. Mark Levinson will ask our first question, Naomi Colton-Max will ask our second question.
Thank you, Rav Doron.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Mark Levinson. I think tomorrow I'll be the president, but we'll find out. Rav Doron, thank you, of course, as usual. I think the unity piece is pretty critical. Debbie and certainly Michael worked very hard the last 4 years to make AZM more unified and about unity. They've done a tremendous job, I think, coming out of October 7th. And frankly, to almost paraphrase Nachshon, what many of us saw at the Congress was not the model for what we're going to do here at AZM. So unity is pretty critical. And you did almost give us a layup, which Debbie answered already, with Israel at 80. So Shoshana and I will have to come up with something that's a little more difficult, but we will do so. On the more, not important, but equally important point, the second point, we are so frankly delighted with you in this position, whether it was going to be the other position or this position or a third position. We're all very excited from a very selfish viewpoint, because we never understood, and again, kol kavod to Debbie, I attended some meetings with her, we never understood how the WZO did really not give us the resources, the partnership, the collaboration, the involvement that as the largest diaspora, we should be having. Even from a political point of view, Israel, the USA is pretty important in world affairs. So we are very delighted, because we know publicly and privately you have talked about it, and we will certainly talk about it further, and we'll talk about it with Yaakov Chagoel. But it is critical, we think, that certainly in the United States of America, the AZM really be the entity that really kind of run Zionist education and programming, not perhaps the way it's been done in the past, but all in a collaborative fashion, of course. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but I just didn't want to offer my thoughts on those two
This
items.
is for questions. Thank you. Nomi,
Thank
and
you.
introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Nomi Colton-Max. I've been vice president, and like Mark, hopefully will continue to be a vice president tomorrow. I'm also here as co-chair of New Jewish Narrative, and I'm chair of the Brit Etz U.S. delegation. I want to thank all of you, and but particularly Rav Perez. I want to focus on a few things from both your speech here and from this conversation. The theme of this event is Zionism, Many Visions, One Dream. And I sat in this room representing the progressive Jewish community and felt that my dream is not welcomed in your Zionism and what you're saying here at the World Zionist Congress. I sit here thinking that I work with many youth who are committed, but are also looking at things not because it's negative, but because they want to build a better way, a better Israel, an Israel built on the Megillat Ha'atzmaut. And I urge you, as we continue, to think this. Jewish unity does not mean that we all believe in the same type of Zionism. Unified Zionism means that we will continue to work together here at the AZM to make this better for our many visions and for Herzl's dream. And so if I have a question, my question for you is, please rethink that, and if you can tell me how you can change that. Because for me, when you spoke at the debate that we had televised here, you talked about working across the aisle. You hit me in a place that I remember working with Mizrahi as a member of Avodah. Thank you.
A few things. Number one, I think the one thing that, well, maybe I'll start with something before. We all know unity is not uniformity. So no one is obviously saying that unity is not uniformity. It's unity in diversity, and we have to find ways that there's space for everybody. The point I think I was making is the following, is that with the battle lines demarcated today by the enemies of Israel, which is not against this government or that government. The issue today is not the 67 borders. The issue is not this policy or that, but the issue that Hamas and their supporters is one thing. There's no place for any Jewish majority entity anywhere between the river and the sea. I think if somebody does not agree with that, I don't think they're a Zionist. If somebody says, we do not believe that there should be a Jewish sovereign entity anywhere between the river and the sea, the Jewish people have no right to Jewish self-determination anywhere between the river and the sea, my view is that that's outside of the purview of Zionism. Because you're saying that the Jewish people, that's just against everything that Jewish values are about. Now, I do believe what that should look like and how it should be. That's the diversity, the unity in diversity. But I think today, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. I think to be a Zionist and to say I'm a Zionist, but I do not believe the Jewish people should have a sovereign Jewish entity anywhere between the river and the sea, I can't identify with that. So I think if those red lines are there, I think that leaves room, meaning if people on the extreme right, Neturei Karta, say that the state, and thankfully there are very few of them, who say there should not be a Jewish entity anywhere between the river and the sea because it's secular, and until it's perfect, it has no raison d'etre. Or if people on the other side, on the extreme progressive left, will say any Jewish majority state anywhere between the river and the sea contravenes the spirit of Judaism, I think that's fine. I just don't think it's Zionism. And I think it's okay to have, because what is Zionism? Zionism is a Jewish homeland for the Jewish people, and in today's day and age, certainly it's Jewish statehood. And I think there do need to be red lines for Zionism, because I think today, Neturei Karta are causing immense damage to the Jewish people. And I believe people on the other side, thankfully few, which say that everything, not this government, that anything Israel does is not in my name. Not this government, any government. The same when it was with Lapid and Bennett. If it can't be that anything Israel does as a Jewish entity anywhere between the river and the sea is acceptable, in my view, it's beyond the purview of Zionism. That's my view. And I think within that, I don't think there's anybody in Israel, in any of the parties in Israel, any Jew who would say that the Jewish people in any Jewish party, and for a Jewish party I'm saying from Meretz to Otzma Yehudit, that would say that looking at in Israel, that the Jewish people should not have a sovereign entity anywhere between the river and the sea. And I think that to me is what Zionism is. It's supporting that. And what it should look like is a totally different issue. There's diversity. Everyone's got a different view. And I believe we should all debate those views. And I just want to say that I've publicly stated whenever I spoke, and I got a bit of flack from people on the right. I stood up in a community in Australia and I said, if you're a modern Orthodox religious Zionist Jew during the elections, we'd appreciate if you voted for Mizrahi. If you're a more ultra-Orthodox Jew, I think you should vote for Eretz HaKodesh or Shas. And if you're a more progressive-leaning Jew, I think you should vote for Conservative and Reform. Because that is your ideological home. It would be a tremendous failure if progressive Jews and liberal Jews felt that they couldn't find a home within the progressive Zionists. Just like the Haredim when they're on the right are fighting to make sure that ultra-Orthodox Jews should be part of the Zionist movement and not outside of it. I'd say on the other side, in the liberal or progressive far left, fighting a similar battle to make sure that Jews, progressive Jews, should feel that they can identify as Zionists. And I think Zionism is broad enough, Jewish sovereignty, for each one to find their narrative of Zionism that allows for that diversity. But I do think there have to be red lines. I think when Mamdani speaks in this city about building Holocaust memorials, and in the same breath says, but talking about moving to Israel is profaning a sacred space, it's an empty gesture, because hatred of Jews of 80 years ago is not the hatred we have today. The hatred we have of Jews today is hatred of Jewish sovereignty anywhere between the river and the sea. And if that is something you see, not because of this or that government, as political, then you have trivialized, demonized the very existence of a Jewish state, and that is the essence of Zionism.
So I think we have time for two final questions. One, any other question? Two. Okay, so we'll get microphones to you. And again, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Chaim Eisels. I want to say I was a lone soldier in the IDF for a couple years. And like we have here, Debbie has a son who's a lone soldier, right? Oh, in your community. Harbert has, Elizabeth has, and we have quite a few from all over the world, a lot of lone soldiers, especially we can say now since October 7, there was close to 90 lone soldiers that lost their life fighting for Israel. Now, those people come from all over the world, from United States, Canada, South Africa, from all over. My question to you is, and to the whole World Zionist Congress is, how can we involve those people who prove themselves and to everyone that they went from their state to fight for Israel, and then they came back? How can we have them involved in the Zionist movement from today? That's number one. Number two, what can we do as Jews from the diaspora, from within the Zionist Congress, to help those who came back suffering from PTSD, or help those who just came back and need a hand? Thank you.
Firstly, shakach to you for your service and everything that you've done. It's very inspiring, and for the people that you are representing and assisting. I think two things. I think anyone who's prepared to serve in the IDF as a lone soldier is an absolute hero of Israel. And the Jewish people, they're doing it not because they have to, not because of mandatory conscription, but out of a deep sense of arvut hadadit. And I think it's an unbelievable thing. And I think strengthening that in every possible way should be something that Israel as a country, the government, the national institutions invests in. You've also got a unique perspective, because you've also talking about what happens when people come back. A lot of lone soldiers stay in Israel. So maybe the whole idea of lone soldiers coming back to their communities what to do with them in terms of involving them in the Zionist movement, in the Jewish communities, in terms of dealing with PTSD. In Israel, we're struggling with that as well. Israel's only beginning now to scratch the surface of the ramifications of the PTSD, which is going to take years and years and years. And I was just at a conference of therapists and doctors who are all struggling with this, and it's just the beginning of it. You know, you've got people who've been serving so many tours of duty, and the pressure it's put on families and individuals is massive in Israel. So maybe we can have a conversation about it. It's not an area that you know, it's a newish area that there's so many lone soldiers and have come back. And I think let's, just like we spoke here with the federations, to find the ways to sit together and find ways to involve them in the future of you know, the Zionist movement. Let's have a conversation to see what we can do. You've got more experience than me, and I'm happy to work with you and others in America and around the world to see what support we can provide. But Yishar Koach for what you've done.
My name is Shula Bahat, and I represent in the United States and other places ANU, the Museum of the Jewish People, which, as you know, and many of you have been there, is very Zionist. I would like to suggest a few things. First of all, it is
We're really going to focus on questions, please.
I know.
I know.
Question mark at the end. Do you agree?
Okay, a quick end, please.
So one suggestion is that we stop to question the existence of Israel. Very often, we are the one that raise the subject, and we really should stop doing that. This question mark, do you agree? The other one...
I'll answer yes.
The other one is, I think we should stop using the term anti-Semitism. It's anti-Jews and anti-the Jewish state. And when you use these two, you begin to understand what's happening here. Anti-Semitism, as you know, and do you know, was invented by a German anti-Semite in the 19th century. And the last thing that I would say is there are young people here. There are many young people like that in the United States. I know many of them because they're my grandkids. And they need us. They need the education that can come from this kind of organization. So let's emphasize it and find in the United States, I'm talking only about the United States now, those organizations that can do it. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I'll just say one thing on education. I just want to say, what was the lady's name who spoke earlier? Naomi. I just wanted to say something just to you and the lady who just asked the question. Is I think in the religious right, who let's say struggling with some of the, you know, what significance to give to a secular state of Israel, and in the progressive left, which might feel that Israel is overly nationalistic and overly sort of parochial, I think that's our challenge together. Is it's only going to be, in my opinion, progressively orientated Jews who will be able to find the language to ensure that as many Jews as possible can feel that they're within the fold, and so too with the religious right. I think they're going to have to come up with the language to how to broaden the tent of Judaism, the tent of Zionism within a Jewish fold. And I think that is our collective responsibility. But there's a lot of diversity here. And I think when it's being other people trying to educate other people, it becomes a bit, condescending. And I think that's our challenge we have to here, is to ensure that I agree with you about what you said about, I think it was Wilhelm Marr was his name, who in 1879, who used the word, anti-Semitism. But I think the critical thing for me is that success will look like in 5 years' time, where we don't have 230,000 people voting, we've got 500,000 people voting. And we've got more and more and more engaged Jews and younger Jews. The fact that many young Jews are feeling estranged this way or that way, we have to ensure that the Jewish Zionist tent is as broad as possible, that people can get behind it. And I think that is our challenge. It's not a simple one, but it's never been simple to be a Jew, and should be good, B'ezrat Hashem.
So please join me in thanking Rabbi Perez, Debbie, Stan, Nachshon for joining with us and engaging with us. It is good to say that we're on schedule. We have a short break until 2 p.m. before our next session, which is a great panel. Herbert